Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I hope that you're fine. Today we'll be having active and passive voices. I will share my screen and we can start. Alright, so first off, you log in using the aplusstudent.com, you input your email and password. Then we'll move on to you clicking on your name. So you click on your name, and then we have language arts. Then we scroll down to grade 8 and find the lesson active and passive voice. Okay, so we have two lessons under passive and active, and we will do the two lessons. Okay, so rewrite the sentence in active voice. This is the first lesson. Okay, we just get some explanations first. So, if a sentence is in active voice, the subject performs the action. Okay, so if the sentence is in passive voices, active voices, okay? So if we have the sentence in an active voice, the subject performs the action. So the subject is the person doing the action, okay? Now, the dog beats the intruder. The dog beats the intruder. The subject, the dog, performs the biting. That's what it means. It's active voice, then the subject performs the action. For example, mommy is washing. Now, mommy is a subject, she's performing the action, which is washing. Okay? Now, if a sentence is in passive voices, the subject receives the action. Okay? When it is in passive voice, the subject will receive the action. Now, the intruder was beaten by the dog. Now, the subject, the intruder, receives the biting. The subject receives the biting. Okay, now it receives the action. Now, the intruder was beaten by the dog. The subject, the intruder, receives the biting. Yeah, like if you ask who was beaten, it's the intruder. So take notes that active voice, subject performs the action, passive voice, subject receives the action. Now let's look at some examples because that's like mainly everything for passive, knowing that the active voice, which is the subject, is performing the action, and the passive is the subject receiving the action. Now rewrite the sentence in active voice using simple past tense. You have to rewrite the sentence using simple past. Several satellites were launched by NASA. So NASA several satellites. So it should be rewrite the sentence in active voice using simple past. So if the main sentence is several satellites were launched by NASA, several satellites were launched by NASA. Now we would see the right sentence after rewriting everything. So several satellites were launched by NASA. So the launched here, okay. Using simple past, write the sentence in active with the subject performing the action. So, with what we've said, we will just change the sentence in the other way around because it says that um the original sentence was in passive voice. The subject receiving the action, like several satellites were launched by NASA, which is passive, and the subject was receiving the action. But then if you want it to be in active voice, you would make the subject perform the action. So NASA is who? The subject. So NASA launched satellites. Okay? NASA launched satellites. That's what we do. Okay? We rephrase it and we change it in a way that the active voice is performing it. Okay? So let's look at some more examples. Then rewrite the sentence in active voice using simple past tense. The liquid was absorbed by the sponge. The liquid was absorbed by the sponge. If you want to rewrite it, you would say the sponge absorbed the liquid. Okay, so if you're rewriting it in the active voice, making the subject performing the action, it will be the sponge absorbed the liquid. Okay, so it was in passive when it says the liquid was absorbed by the sponge, and then to rearrange the sentence in active, the sponge absorbed the liquid. Now these products are designed by a German company. These products are designed by a German company. It's in passive voice, and if you want to put it in simple past tense active voice, a German company designed these products. Okay, so again, I will just explain the active voice. If a sentence is in active voice, the subject performs the action. Then, if a sentence is in passive voice, the subject receives the action. I will write some examples of passive and active voices on the chat on the board right now. So I'll just give some examples so you can see more. So let's go now. So we will have active, and then we will have passive here. So let's write some examples. When we write examples for active, we will have the passive of it as well. So I ate the strawberry. No, I ate the apple pie. Mm, it has flour. Then the sun rises from the east. Mia came to skydiving. So these are like the active sentences. So now I will make the passive of the sentence. Okay. Okay, so that's it for the active and then for the passive. So for the active, we say, I ate the apple pie. Okay, I ate the apple pie. And then in the passive voice, you would say, the apple pie was eaten by me. The apple pie was eaten by me. Now, I bought a Tesla in active. A Tesla was bought by me in passive. The sun rises from the east. The sun rises from the east. The east is where the sun rises from. Okay, then you can see that it says the east is where the sun rises from. Rima can do skydiving. Skydiving can be done by Rima. Okay, so that's it for active and passive. You have this format and you have that format. So let's go to the test and do some questions. Now, rewrite the sentence in active voices using past tense. The liquid was absorbed by the sponge. Okay? What are you gonna change? Absorbed. Rewrite the sentence in active voice. So, the sponge was absorbed by the liquid. Now, the study's results are illustrated by the graph. Now, this graph illustrates the study's results. In present tense, this was in present tense. And this is in simple past. NASA launched several satellites. These products are designed by a German company. A German company designs these products in present tense. Reservations are required by many restaurants. Reservations are required by many restaurants. Many restaurants require reservation because it's in the present. A replay was requested by the referee. The referee requested a replay, and that is past tense. The Clement was discovered by the Cruises. The Cruises discovers the elements, right? So the elements was discovered by the Curses, and then the Curses discovered the elements. Are you surprised by the election results? Past tense. The election results surprised me. Such warrants were obtained by the police. The police obtained such warrants. So that's it for active voice to passive. It's very basic, very easy. If you understand the pattern, then you can solve and answer your questions. So the next one is identify active and passive. So in this one, the first one we rewrote. So we rewrite the sentence in active. Now in the second, we would have to identify active and passive. But before that, I will give some time for you to ask questions on active and passive. So you can ask me any question before we continue. 3 minutes, and then ask your questions, and then we can move on to the next test. Okay, since we have no questions, we will continue now in the next lesson. Identify active and passive voices. So that's what we will be doing in this one. So, like I said, active voice, the subject performs the action, which is here, and then the passive voice, the subject receives the action. In passive voices, the verb phrase includes a form of a plus, includes a form of to be plus a past participle. So in passive voice, it usually has the verb phrase, which includes a form of to be plus a past participle. Like in France, the Mona Lisa is called La Joconde. We should have been notified about the change. Now, let's see which sentence is a passive voice. Hundreds of people work projects were initiated by New Deal agencies during Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency. So, okay. Now, it says that the first sentence is in active, the subject performs the action, and the verb initiated does not include a form of to be. So, this is the first sentence. This one. And then New Deal Agency, it's the second. Okay, so the solution is hundreds of public works projects were initiated. So we will get it more better if we try to answer like some test questions. So we will just answer the test. Just take note that passive. receives the action, and it has a phrase, verb, form of to be plus a past participle, and then the active is the performer of the action. Okay, now which sentence is in passive voice? Which sentence is in passive voice? It says Israel would, okay, Israel must have been exhausted by that long flight to Australia. The 22-hour flight to Australia must have utterly exhausted Israel. Now, if you look at the examples that we have here, I ate the apple pie. The apple pie was eaten by me. So now passive has a pattern, and that's why it says that it follows the to be form plus the past participle. Okay? Now, the 22-hour flight to Australia must have utterly exhausted Israel. So now this should be the passive. Okay? This should be the passive form. Now, which sentence is in passive voice? On August 21, 1911, the Mona Lisa was stolen by Vincenzo Perugia and a group of accomplices dressed as janitors. Were stolen. So now this is rephrased also. Now, which one do we think will be in the passive voice? Remember that it needs to be receiving the action. So let's go with the first one. Now, the first one is the correct one. Now, the holiday of Cinco de Mayo commemorates an 1862 Mexican military victory. And then an 1862 Mexican military victory is commemorated by Cinco de Mayo. Now, which is the passive? Now, if you click an answer and it is wrong, all you need to do is scroll down and realize or read why it was wrong. So the first sentence is in active. The subject performs the action. Okay? Now the second sentence, which is the an 1816 to Mexican military victory, is this. That is the passive voice. So if ever you get anything wrong, scroll down, read it again, just so that you can understand it better. Now, which is the passive voice? By this time tomorrow, a wrecking ball will have demolished the historic theater downtown. By this time tomorrow, the theater will have been demolished by a wrecking ball. Okay? Now, let's say this one. Because that is receiving the action. Now, the Singletons were thrilled by the news of their granddaughter's birth. The news of their granddaughter's birth thrilled the Singletons. So, who is receiving the action here? Now, the news of their granddaughter. This now means that it's in active voice and it is performing the action. But if you read it here, this one is in the passive voice. Okay? Now, Dr. Everett's studies have documented significant improvements in athletic performance. Significant improvements in athletic performance have been documented by Dr. Everest. studies. So, which will be in the passive voice? Or the first or the second? So now if you pick this one, you see that it is wrong because this one shows that okay, Dr. Everest is performing the action. He is the one performing. But if you read the second one, it shows that what? This is receiving the action. So get the difference. Before we proceed to next question, ask me any questions under passive. Questions on passive if you have any. Ask me any questions from passive if you have. Okay, so since we have no questions, let's answer more. Which sentence is in passive? On April 18, 1906, an earthquake and its fiery afterwards devastated the city of San Francisco. On April 18, 1906, San Francisco was devastated by an earthquake and its fiery aftermath. So, Francisco was devastated. Now, I am excited by the prospect of living in a foreign country one day. The prospect of potentially living in a foreign country one day excites me. So, is it I am excited or the prospect? So, we will choose one of the above. Okay. So, let's see. So, let's go with the first, this one. So, now I am excited by the prospect of living in a foreign country is the right answer. So, several congressional bills have proposed mandatory labeling of genetically engineered foods in the United States. Hmm. An X-ray could have detected the hairline fracture in his arm. The hairline fracture could have been detected by an X-ray. Okay. Now, this is the last one we will do together. A clear majority of the organization voted the current leader into office. The trade union current leader was voted. So that's it. Okay. So that's how we go about the passive voices and the active voices. So you can watch this video again if you do not understand active and passive. We also have some examples here that were shown. I ate the apple pie. The apple pie was eaten by me. And then now you can ask some more questions if you have any from passive and active voices. You ask your question, and if we do not have any question, we will end in the next 5 minutes. So, 5 more minutes, and you can ask all the questions that you have. So, you can ask me any questions if you have any. I'm here to answer your questions on passive and active before we will end the class for today. Okay, so if you do not have any questions, we will end now. So you can watch this video all over again if you do not understand, and then try to finish up the lesson on passive and active voice. So see you next time. Bye, everyone.